The liabilities and negligence of foodborne illness and how it has progressed over history with food safety. Negligence in a foodborne illness case is when a defendant fails to exercise reasonable care and cause harms to others when it comes to preparing their food or processing and packaging their food. The duty of the defendant was to provide their legal duty to exercise their reasonable care when it came to packaging or preparing food for these people following the guidelines that are put in place today. They could have breached this and broken their promise to the guest in failing to prepare their food properly without care or failing to package without care as well. Nowadays, there are many different laws and regulations in place for you and the guests to know how their food was prepared. But in history, it has started over time. And over time, it started way back in 1785 when it is believed that the first U.S. food safety law was put into place, and it was called the Massachusetts Act Against Selling Unwholesome Provisions. This made it illegal to knowingly sell diseased, corrupted, contagious, or unwholesome foods and drinks, and it was punished by fine or imprisonment as well. Because it was happening vastly over time, as it started back in 1785 and continued, in 1906 the FDA was formed to enforce the Pure Food and Drug Act and Federal Meal Inspection Act, which was passed in 1906. And this prohibited the sale of misbranded or adulterated food and drugs in interstate commerce. This prohibited the sale of misbranded or adulterated livestock and derived products as food, and it ensured that the livestock were slaughtered and processed under sanitary conditions. It also made the reforming of meat packaging industries, and it mandated the USDA, or the U.S. Department of Agriculture, to inspect all cattle, swine, and sheep and goats and horses before slaughtering and processed for human consumption. While this law was passed and encouraged transparency between the producers of food to the consumer, in 1962 the Consumer Bill of Rights was introduced, and it had 4 fundamentals for every consumer. It said the right to safety, the right to choose, the right to be heard, and the right to be informed on all food that you are ingesting, which encouraged many of the packaging that we see nowadays on our food that is transparent and showing all of the food items that are in one ingredient to make certain things. After the bill was introduced for consumers in 1973, we had the first major food recall in the U.S. It was a nationwide illness outbreak from canned mushrooms. So more than 75 million cans of mushrooms were removed from store shelves, and encouraged the United States to look into more of becoming against all of the contamination that could happen within the canning process or eating process as well. Despite this being the first major food recall in the US, there have been plenty of other recalls, and even seen now today as close to as a couple months ago when we had the listeria outbreak in many foods. And because of this, back in 1996, there was a HACCP Systems Landmark Rule issued, and it encouraged pathogen reduction. This rule forces on the prevention and reduction of microbial pathogens on raw products that can cause illness. So HACCP is a hazard analysis and critical control point, was implemented in all food safety and inspection services and state inspected meat and poultry slaughter establishments across the nation between 1997 and the year 2000. Their main goal was to reduce the number of pathogens on meat and poultry products, and reducing the risk of foodborne illness from meat and poultry products as well. This rule required establishments to regularly test for microbes at slaughter establishments and to develop and implement an HACCP system within their houses. Shortly after the HACCP protocols were placed into different establishments. In 2000, the Global Food Safety Initiative, or GFSI, was created, and it was a collaborative to drive industry improvement to reduce food safety risk and increase consumer confidence in the delivery of safe food. The GFSI ensures that a supplier is knowledgeable about the proper standards and rule of food safety management. So they observe and inspect the supplier while they are operating to ensure that they are following proper safety protocols and guidelines in their process, and they review their records and check to see if they are doing what they are stating and reporting to the government. And lastly, in 2011, the Food Safety Modernization Act was signed into law, or the FSMA. It enables the FDA to focus on food safety preventative measures rather than being a reaction when an outbreak occurs. So they strive to not have to react, but to prevent before all of it happens. I believe that all of this has had a positive impact in the way that foodborne illnesses have been seen over history and how it has impacted and regulated them over time with their laws and regulations. This is not only a very positive impact as it has enforced establishments to see how they are handling our product or preparing our product in a restaurant, but it also in places different laws, regulations, and fees that could happen if they are not following all of these laws and regulations in place.